everyone, Toy Fair 2025 was this weekend, and I thought it'd be really fun to take a look at some of the stuff that got revealed. I'm gonna be focusing on the NECA Ninja Turtles things because that's my domain. So if you're a fan of NECA and the Ninja Turtle stuff that they do, I'm gonna be going through all that stuff, and then stay tuned afterwards because I'm also gonna be going through what NECA is dropping for their Haulathon, which is happening a little bit later this month. All right, so let's get started. I'm gonna cheat and have my laptop with me, so if you see me looking down, that's what's going on. First up, we have a robot version of Tokka and Razor based on the cartoon series. This is a what if sort of figure. Now, NECA did release the Super Bebop and Mighty Rocksteady figure set. I don't like saying it that way. For me, it's always been Super Rocksteady and Mighty Bebop. That's actually what was on the VHS tape, but the episode was called Super Bebop and Mighty Rocksteady. Anyway, you don't care about that. You care about the figure. So the figure, it's kind of a cool idea doing a robot version of Tokka and Razor. I think it's neat. I just don't really get why we're doing it. We have so much stuff that hasn't been touched yet from the original cartoon series that it seems really odd to make figures of stuff that just were never in the show. I mean, I like the energy, but it's like, why don't we have Merdude? Why don't we have Tempestra? Why don't we have Ray? Why don't we have Drag? Why don't we have Red Sky Turtles, Carter? I could go on forever. You get the point. Okay, we also got to look at the PandaCon figure. This was revealed at some point last year. PandaCon was not a Ninja Turtles character. It was actually another creator's character, a lot like Usagi, and they made a figure for him in the original toy line. He never showed up in the original cartoon series, but I guess they just figured it made the most sense to put him in that line. So he is going to be a cartoon series figure. Again, it's kind of like a what if figure, but this one I actually am okay with because it sort of makes sense. We also got to look at the new Shredder, the Ultimate Shredder. This one kind of looks to fix some of the issues that we had with the original Shredder figure. He comes with more accessories, and it looks like he also has his original head as well. So that's pretty cool. I'm excited for that one. And then lastly, we have Dark Leonardo. This is something that was in the Saturday Morning Adventures comic book that IDW is doing. I don't entirely remember the context behind it, but he kind of looks a little, he's wearing a lot of leather, let's just put it that way. He's kind of a strange figure, but he's cool. He's cool looking. But again, another what if figure, and I'm not gonna go into that again, but you know what I'm saying. Oh, I almost forgot, there is this weird Donatello too off to the side next to Dark Leonardo. He's got like a foot soldier head on. Not entirely sure what that's supposed to be. I'm guessing it's another what if figure. It's possible that was in the Saturday Morning Adventures comic books as well. I haven't read every single issue though, so I can't say for sure, but he's kind of neat looking. All right, next up we have the figures from the 2012 CGI animated cartoon series. Leonardo and Michelangelo were revealed last year, I believe, during Comic-Con, if I recall correctly. And now we're seeing for the first time Raphael, Donatello, Shredder, the foot soldier, and then there was that weird four-armed foot soldier as well. So it looks like they're really going hard with this line just coming out of the gate. I have no doubts that we'll see Splinter, Casey, April, and who knows what else out of this line. Honestly, I think they look pretty good. They look exactly like they did in the cartoon series. NECA's pretty good about matching the visuals and making them work as a figure. Sometimes it works better than others, like the Krang android body, for example. He just falls over constantly because he got little tiny feet. But these ones look like they'll stand pretty good, and I'm excited for them. I wasn't the biggest fan in the world of that series. I thought it started off very, very rough, and then it got really good as it went on. But I still think it's cool they're making figures, and I'll definitely be picking them up. Now we're gonna get into the Ninja Turtles X Universal Monsters line. This is the crossover line they did. A lot of people were disappointed with this line because they wanted it to more mirror the cartoony style of the Playmates version. I get why they didn't do that. Personally, I would have preferred that too. If you're gonna do a bunch of what if cartoon figures, I'd love what if Raphael was a werewolf, you know, or something like that. But they went realistic with these, and some of them work better than others. I think this is one of the weaker lines that they have, but I do kind of like what I'm seeing here with some of these newer ones. First up, we have Shredder as Dracula. This was something that a friend of mine and I had predicted a long time ago when we were figuring out which characters were going to get which. Now, if you remember in the original toy line, Donatello was Dracula and Shredder never had a figure at all. So Shredder makes a lot of sense, especially with Splinter being Van Helsing. So I'm all for it. He looks okay. I like he comes with 3 heads. I think his regular head is kind of boring, honestly. The helmet's pretty cool looking, so it's kind of got an Aztec sort of vibe to it. So I appreciate it. I think it's neat, though I did hear a rumor that there's gonna be 3 different versions of this figure, 2 of them being retail exclusive. I think one's gonna have gold highlights on it. There's the one that you're seeing in the pictures here right now, and then there's gonna be another one that's like a red version. I don't know when those are coming out or who's going to be carrying them, but that's just something that I believe someone said Randy mentioned in one of his interviews, so yeah. Next up we have Krang as what I assume is supposed to be the Metaluma mutant. I believe that's how you say that, from This Island Earth, and I assume that simply because NECA is also making a This Island Earth figure as well, so I'm guessing that that's what this is the crossover for. Also, that was a figure that was in the original line. It's kind of cool that they're bringing in other characters. What's sort of weird to me about this though is it felt a little bit like this line was more of a cross with the movie line. Krang obviously was never in the movies, so it's a little interesting that they decided to do that, but I actually think this figure looks pretty cool, so I am actually excited to get this one. Next up is this weird two-headed turtle. It looks like, I think that's supposed to be Donatello and Michelangelo. I'll be honest with you, I don't really like this one all that much. I think it's really weird looking. I think it's cool that they did it. I'm just not, it's not for me. So if you're excited about it, that's awesome. I'm just glad they're continuing the line because I know there were people that were fans and were asking a lot about when this was going to come back. This for me is not the business, but that's okay. They can do what they can keep going on that path if they want. All right, so now we're getting to the movie line figures, and this is where things get a little weird. So going back to the idea of what if figures, what if Bebop and Rocksteady were in a live action Ninja Turtles movie in the 90s? Obviously they appeared in Out of the Shadows, they were like CGI characters, but I think the idea here is what if Jim Henson's Creature Shop designed Bebop and Rocksteady and put them into a movie instead of like Toka and Razor, for example. There's been a lot to be said about this. Some people like them, a lot of people do not like them. Unfortunately, I'm in the mixed bag sort of boat here. I think Bebop looks awful. Rocksteady looks okay. I think they look kind of weird. They're almost like a mix of like cartooniness with the live action look, and it just does not work entirely for me. I'm hoping, because this is still a prototype, that they might have an opportunity to make some adjustments, especially to Bebop. I think they could do better. To me, this does not look like something that Jim Henson's Creature Shop would design. That's just me personally. Some people disagree with that. I'm curious though, what do you guys think? I'd like to hear down in the comments what your thoughts are on this live action Bebop and Rocksteady, because there's definitely been some controversy with them in the turtle circles I travel in. Also on the same shelf with Bebop and Rocksteady, we have Kevin Eastman Garbage Man 2.0. I don't know what that means. He looks the same to me as the one that we already got as a Comic-Con exclusive last year, but I guess they're re-releasing him for whatever reason. I'm not really clear on that. He did sell out, so maybe they're thinking there's a market for it. Also, you can see that they have some 35th anniversary Turtles. I kind of knew they were going to do this, but it looks like they're going to be re-releasing the movie one Turtles for the 500th time, and this time they're going to have the heads that came with the accessory set. So if you missed out on the accessory set and you really wanted those sort of more laid-back heads that came with that, this release, I guess, will be for you. For me, I bought them like 3 times already. I think I'm good. I don't need any more versions of these specific turtles. So these next couple figures are ones that I'm actually pretty excited for. I think this is a really cool idea, and I had no idea they were going to do this. They did a Stan Sakai style for the Ninja Turtles, and there's an Usagi that's coming with them. We already have a lot of Usagi, so I'm not as excited about the Usagi, but these turtles look pretty cool. They're spot on to his artwork. And I had asked a long time ago for them to try to do stuff like this, so I'm glad to see they are. I'm a big fan of some of the specific styles that the turtles were drawn in, like AC Farley, for example. His turtles look really cool. They're kind of bigger looking, and I always loved the design. I also really like the way that Dan Berger draws the turtles. I would love for them to turn his artwork into figures. It would just make me a happy nerd. So these are the kind of thing that I love to see them doing, and I'm glad that they're finding a clever way to sort of keep doing turtles, but you know, not exactly the same. Now we're on to the Archie Comics figures. We have Wingnut and Screw Loose. They just look like they jumped right off the page. This Archie line is literally a dream line for me. I've always loved the Archie Comics. It's one of my favorite incarnations of the Turtles. I love the way that the Turtles looked in the Archie Comics, and it's really cool to see this artwork just kind of come to life like this. In the background, you can see Ace Duck. Looks like he pummeled Leatherhead with a chair. So Ace Duck was a part of the Stump Wrestling story arc. If you remember, we got the Stump Wrestling Turtles last year. We also got Leatherhead in his wrestling outfit. So it looks like NECA's kind of leaning into that wrestling theme, which is pretty cool. And Ace Duck's a fun character, especially that version of him specifically. Maybe we'll get, I think his name was Trap. I'd like to see Trap as well. He was kind of like a weird macho man looking dude. More importantly in this picture though is the April O'Neil that got teased a few years ago. They did this thing in April, like 2022, I want to say, maybe 2023, it's been a while, where they revealed a bunch of April figures. One of them was the Mirage Comics April figure. We'll get to her a little bit later because they did finally reveal her. One was the Grandma Last Ronin April, which just came out, so we got her. She's, I think, the first one that we got. One of them was this one, which is from an Archie comic book where April becomes a turtle. So that's really cool to see because this is a preview of what it'll look like when we get Archie Comics style of the actual brothers. So that I'm excited for. And then the other one, I don't know if that's ever gonna happen, but they did a stream with Judith Hoag and she gave her likeness to them so that they could turn the arcade cabinet April into a figure. And one of the guys from NECA had like a prototype that he made. To me, it looked like he kit bashed together a Judith Hoag figure with like Ripley from Alien and painted it to look kind of like the arcade cabinet April. I don't know if that figure is even happening anymore. We've heard absolutely nothing about it. It's just been radio silence. But again, so was this April 5th turtle. So who knows? Anything could happen at this point. Next, we're getting into the Last Ronin figures. I'll be honest with you, I haven't read anything outside of the first Last Ronin book, and even that I don't remember super well. So some of these figures I am not familiar with. I'll just kind of flash them on the screen here, and you can get hyped for them as you look at them. I do think it's cool that they're going so hard into this, and I do think these figures look exactly like Ben Bishop's artwork, so that's really cool. I'm just not as amped for them as I am other things because I'm just not a super big Last Ronin fan personally. You can see we have the black, white, and red figures as well. Most of these have already come out. We're waiting on Casey, and now you can see that they're doing in April as well. I think this is from the Lost Years. Again, I didn't read that comic book, but you know, they look cool. They're cool looking figures. They're a cool way to do a variant, I think. Last but certainly not least are the Mirage Comics figures. These are the ones I am probably the most excited for. You can see there's a freaking samurai dinosaur in the background. He's a really cool character. He had a figure in the original Playmates toy line, but he was never in the cartoon or anything like that. He was only in, I think, 2 issues of the original comic series. It was called Masks. If you read that story arc and then you watch Ninja Turtles 3, you will see some similarities between the two. I have a feeling that when they were planning Ninja Turtles 3, they were maybe thinking about doing that storyline and they just couldn't afford it, or Jim Henson dropping out really made it feel like it wasn't possible to realize those special effects. But regardless, it's really cool to have a figure of him. Also, we have the Unmentionables. This was a cool storyline for the Turtles where they're going after, I believe it's like the Golden Cow or whatever, and Casey Jones is like a detective. It's like kind of a noir story. I hope they do the Casey Jones from this story as well, and actually the April too, who's on the cover. That would be really cool, but getting the Gangster Turtles is pretty awesome, and it also lets me think that maybe they could open the door for the Gangster Turtles from the original cartoon series, because that would be super cool. And I mentioned her before, but there's that April that we talked about. So there was an April figure that they did a long time ago, back in 2009, I want to say it was, and she was a Comic-Con exclusive figure. I don't think she sold super well, but she's actually very rare now. And she was based on the original first appearance of April. This specific April is from the cover of issue 11, I believe it is, and that's when she got a perm. No idea why her jacket's brown because it's blue on the cover. I'm gonna guess that was some IDW recoloring situation, so we may be getting a variant of this in the future where it's colored to match the original comic book more. But regardless, I think it's cool that we're finally getting this figure, and we'll have another April to add to the Jim Lawson Turtles that we got a few years ago, because I think she'll match better with them than the original April that they did. Also, we have this weird Fugitoid who's got like glitter on him and he looks kind of glow in the dark. One of my buddies thinks that it's possibly supposed to be a transmat, in the middle of a teleportation Fugitoid. That could definitely be it. I honestly have no idea what this could be from. The only other thing I could think of is maybe that's how he was colored in one of the IDW comic books for some reason. I couldn't say, but he's kind of cool looking. I'll definitely be picking him up. All right, so that about does it for Toy Fair 2025. Now I want to talk about Haulathon 2025. That's where NECA takes all your tax dollars because they are dropping a whole bunch of stuff. So we're just going to start at the top of this picture here. Supposedly this is the things that are going to be available. And again, this is happening at Target. If it's from the comic book line, it's very likely that it will probably go online at other retailers at some point, but anything from the cartoon line is going to be exclusive to Target, so just keep that in mind when we're looking at this. All right, starting in the top left corner, we have a black and white Casey Jones. They've been doing these black and white figures for a few years now. In my opinion, they're pretty cool, but they don't entirely match the Turtles that they did from 2008, so I'm imagining at some point we're gonna get black and white Jim Lawson style Turtles that also kind of fall in line with the way that they've been coloring like the Shredder and the Foot Soldier and stuff that they did recently. In the center here, we have the Unmentionables 4-pack. We already talked about these figures. These are the same ones that you saw at the Toy Fair, so those are the guys that'll be inside of that. On the right here, we have the Foot Elite Guard, and he is in black and white as well, so it's kind of neat to see that they are continuing on with that. In the middle section here, we have a few things that aren't franchises I'm necessarily interested in, but just in case you are, we got a Pee Wee Herman, which is pretty cool. We have a Michael Myers from Halloween, The Curse of Michael Myers. So for those horror fans, I've been asking for more horror figures. They got you covered. We have a Beetlejuice. I think this is him from the end of the first movie when he's got the tuxedo on. He's trying to marry Lydia. And then we have the Count from Sesame Street. One of my buddies is a huge Sesame Street fan, so he's pretty amped for these. All right, the next shelf, we have a bunch of stuff from the cartoon series line. This is the things that are going to be exclusive to Target. So if you want these, you will have to get them at Target, and they may only be available during Haulathon. We don't actually know. Starting off on the left, we have PandaCon. We already saw him. He was in the Toy Fair pictures we looked at. Next to them, we have the Creepy Eddie and Shibata-sama 2-pack. Those are kind of like ghost characters, so it makes sense to put them together. These guys were revealed last year at Comic-Con, I believe, so now we're finally getting the package release of them, which is pretty cool. Next to them, we have our Shredder, which we already talked about. He looks pretty awesome, so I'm excited for him. Then we have Tattoo and Worm. These were also revealed at Comic-Con last year. Tattoo was in the original cartoon. He was like a hamster in the planet of the Turtleoids who got turned into a giant sumo wrestler somehow. Don't really know how that makes sense, but that's okay. He was also a toy in the original toy line. You may remember that more. And he was in the Archie Comics too. And then next to him is Worm. Worm's an interesting character because Worm never actually appeared in anything animated outside of like a brief shot in a toy commercial. And he was not colored to look like his toy. So that's why these colors may not be the ones that you remember from the Worm toy, but this is what he looked like in that advertisement. Last but not least, we have that weird Dark Leonardo. They are using the cover art to mimic the cereal box art to a degree from the original Ninja Turtle cereal, if you remember that. Good on you, NECA, giving us that nostalgia hit. Now onto the bottom shelf, this is all Mirage comic figures. Again, these may be available at retailers at a later date, so you may see these on like Entertainment Earth or Walmart or whatever. They're not gonna probably be exclusive to Target. We don't know that for sure, but that's usually how this works out. So on the bottom left, we have the Foot Assassin. This guy came out last year, but he was all red. So this is one that's in a more normal color scheme. So if you skipped out on the red one, this is the one you'll probably wanna get. Next up is a Donatello figure. This was like him in the workshop. This was another one that was revealed at Comic-Con. Next to him, we have a Raphael figure. This is another version of him where he has like an eye patch. And this was a short story, I believe, that this came from. And there was also a picture where he looked like this in one of the portfolios that Mirage released. So it's kind of cool to see they made a figure of that. Next to him is Leonardo when he's decked out in his little outfit and he's in the woods with the bow and arrow. Then we have the April that we've already talked about. And then lastly, we have the Shredder that came out a year or two ago where he's all beat up and all that stuff, but he's in red this time. So instead of the blue that the IDW Comics colored him in, this is the original Mirage Comics. We still do not have a regular Shredder re-release. He's the only figure from that Mirage Villains 4-pack that NECA did a while back before they got back into doing the Turtles line that hasn't gotten a single issue release, but seeing this, I have no doubts that we're gonna eventually get to him. So anyway, this has been a long video, so if you stuck around to the end, thank you so much. I hope you enjoyed it. Let me know what figures you're the most excited for down in the comments, and I'll catch you guys next time.